And it's Ken Kreitzer in Washington, D.C. for CBSI Services, and we're at the PACE TPCA Summit, which is just starting to wrap up. Have a chance to talk to the General Counsel of PACE, as Michelle Shuster from McMurray, Peterson, and Shuster. And great to see you, Michelle. It's been a great conference. You just gave a nice talk about the self-regulation program, the accreditation program that companies and individuals can go through so that they are certified that they meet the regulations that PACE has identified and also the industry. Tell us a little bit about the self-regulatory program.
So I can tell you at the PACE TCPA Summit, we are very focused on compliance, and PACE as an organization is extremely focused on compliance. I think it's a pillar of the association and one of the things that we do best. From our perspective, we have 3 tools that will assist our members and those in the contact center industry and those working in customer engagement with their compliance. First, we have the PACE SRO, which is a self-regulatory organization. We have a set of standards that represent the legal requirements on a state and federal law level and best practices in the industry for compliance with those regulations. The process requires a company to make application with PACE. You do not have to be a PACE member. Once you make that application, you'll go through a self-assessment process, and then an independent third-party auditor comes in and reviews your compliance with the PACE SRO standards. That third-party audit and the self-assessment are reviewed by General Counsel for PACE, and then a recommendation is made to the board whether to accredit a company or not. So it's a wonderful tool as far as knowing what your requirements are to comply with the law. I call it compliance in a box. I think it gives compliance professionals within an organization, owners and managers, a high level of certainty that they're complying with regulations and really the ability to sleep easier at night, not worrying about these types of issues. We also have another program called the CECP, which is an individual certification program. It's the Customer Engagement Compliance Professional Certification. And that is a pretty rigorous curriculum that's provided by PACE for individual compliance professionals. They're required to review the laws that affect them as compliance professionals within a contact center. They go through, as I said, an extensive body of knowledge. PACE offers also compliance seminars that will help them with learning that body of knowledge. And then they're tested on the requirements for being a compliance professional. It's a pretty rigorous program. The individuals that are able to pass that test and get the accreditation at the end of the process are very good compliance professionals and really represent best in class in the industry. And then finally, PACE has a regulatory guide that gives all of the federal and state laws that affect contact centers, telemarketing companies. And it is a subscription service that is updated on a daily basis. Alerts are also sent out as changes to the law or things such as calling holidays or other types of calling restrictions are put into place. And the combination of those 3 tools really puts PACE at the forefront of compliance and helping its members in the customer engagement community comply with federal and state regulations. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about them today.
Sure. And Michelle, I thought Ken Sponsler of Compliance Point had a great presentation this morning. And one of the things he said is that the process of self-assessment helps identify, and auditing and monitoring helps identify mistakes and omissions, even for a company that is trying to follow best practices. Why is that so important? And is that your experience? A lot of mistakes and omissions are found just through simple monitoring?
Golly, it would be very hard to make a generalization like that. I can tell you that the SRO accreditation process is focused on having policies and procedures to comply with the law. And presumably, if companies have written policies and procedures in place to comply with the law, we're not going to identify a lot of mistakes. I think it would be impossible for anybody to do it perfect 100% of the time. But if you have the policies and procedures in place, there shouldn't be a lot of issues that are identified. I think when Ken was talking specifically this morning about data audits and companies that were doing audits of their call data for do not call compliance, all of the various various do not calls, that as they started with that process, the number of issues they ran into with a number potentially having been on a do not call list or a cellular list or something like that, the instances of those decreased. So I think that was more what he was talking about this morning. I will say, though, another point that's been brought up a number of times today is that state and federal regulations have safe harbor provisions in them, and if you go through the SRO accreditation process, you would be presumably meeting those safe harbors because you have written policies and procedures, you're training employees on them, you are then auditing against those processes and procedures and identifying or remediating any type of issue that you would have out there. So that is one of the larger benefits of going through the SRO accreditation process.
Very good. And Michelle Schuster, maybe if you would just tell us, where is your law firm, and just maybe tell us a little bit about your practice.
So my law firm is located in Columbus, Ohio, actually in a suburb called New Albany. And our law firm was founded about 10 years ago by 4 former consumer protection chiefs from the Ohio AG's office and a former Ohio Attorney General. And we have focused on very niche areas as we've developed as a law firm, and those are helping companies comply with the laws that we used to enforce when we were regulators. We've grown to be one of Columbus's Fast 50 companies this year and have been identified by U.S. News and World Reports as one of the top law firms in the United States. So we're very proud of what we do, and we take customer or client representation as one of the most important things that we can do, and try to give them that former regulatory perspective while we're assisting them.
Okay. And just a last thought, is there a major highlight of this PACE TPCA Summit here in Washington that stands out for you? You've had some great guests from federal agencies, a member of the U.S. Senate, and some very distinguished attorneys and business owners. Well, any particular point that stands out that people will come away from this event with?
Boy, it'd be hard to point to one presentation. So many different types of presentations. Getting the perspective of the regulators while they were here is extremely valuable. I think our membership was very impressed with the level of vigor that Lois Greisman from the FTC expressed when talking about enforcement actions, and I think that's an important message for them to hear. We have an amazing group of attorneys that are PACE members that have lended their time and talent in presenting over the summit, and just wonderful presentation. So I don't know that I could point to one specific thing. Right now we have members that are on the Hill meeting with their congressional representatives, and the message that they're taking is so important for PACE and the industry. So we just, it's been a wonderful couple of days.
Great, and I understand you're going to speak for the PACE group in New Jersey coming up in October, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Michelle Schuster, General Counsel for PACE, great to see you, and just a wonderful conference here. I know you had a lot to do putting it together.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This is Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services in Washington, D.C. at the PACE Association TPCA Summit.